Hi children, this is Deepika Baskar from G.k.Jain school. Today I am going to take class for 5th standard, subject science, and the lesson name is food. Before going to the session, please subscribe our YouTube channel G.k.Jain school so that you never miss any new update from our school. Shall we move on to the topic, children? In the previous class, we already saw about the spoilage of food. Today we are going to learn about the preservation of food. Nowadays, the crop yielding and the cultivation will be very decreasing. So that we have to save the food. That means we do not want to spoil the food. Okay children, we have some methods to preserve the foods. Now we are going to see what are the methods are involved in the preservation of food. The first method is drying, addition of salt, addition of sugar. The next one is freezing, boiling, canning and bottling. The final one is addition of chemical preservatives. These are the methods which is involving in the preservation of food. Let us take a look at all these methods, children. The first one is drying. Drying is an important removal of water content from the food by drying it in the sunlight. It is an old method which is used in the olden days itself. It is a removal of water content. That means it absorbs the moisture from the food. So, when we are keeping the food material under sunlight, it will absorb all moisture from the food. So, it will be preserved. It will not get spoiled. For example, grains. It is a best example for the drying method. The next method is addition of salt. When salt is added to food, it removes the water from the food. That means when we are adding the salt to the food, it absorbs the moisture that the water is absorbed by the salt. So the food will not get spoiled. Example for the addition of salt is fish and pickles. When you taste the pickles, it will be little bit salty. Because of the salt only, the pickles are not spoiled. Fish. For the dry fish also, they are adding many salt for this process. Addition of sugar. We already saw the salt, addition of salt, like that only. This process also, we are adding the sugar to the food. So it will not get spoiled. It will be preserved. When sugar is added to food, it dissolves in the water and it forms a syrup. It's like a sugar syrup. So it keeps the food preserved. The water content of the food and it preserves the food. So from the food, it does not be spoiled. When the sugar is added to food, it dissolves in the water content of the food and it preserves the food from the spoiling of food. Example for the addition of sugar is jam and fruit juices. Jam and fruit juices are prepared only by this addition of sugar method. This is the best method for preparing jam and fruit juices. In jam, we are preparing the most fruits are mixed together and they are adding some sugar so that they are keep on some processing so that we are getting jam and fruit juices. Now we are going to see about the freezing. What does mean by freezing? The microbial growth and enzyme activity on the frozen food items can be preserved in this type. In this process, the microbial growth, that means the growth of the microorganism on the food, it will not takes place on the freezing method. And the enzyme activity also, the chemical properties of this enzyme It will not take place on the food. So the food will not get spoiled. The microbial growth and enzyme activity on the frozen food items can be prevented. It will prevent the microbial growth, that means the microorganism growth like bacteria, yeasts and the fungi and all. The growth of these microorganisms will be stopped. Example for the freezing method is fruits and vegetables. That reason only we are keeping the vegetables and fruits under refrigerator, so that only the fruits and vegetables will not get spoiled. This is boiling. In our day-to-day life, we are doing this method. Boiling method is, it kills the microorganisms present in the food materials. When we are allow the food to boil, it will kill all the microorganisms is present inside the food materials. Example for the boiling method is milk and water. So that only we are supposed to drink the boiled water. It will keep us safe. We move on to the next method, canning and bottling. Canning and bottling means nothing but when we are putting the food materials in the cans and bottles. So this is known as canning and bottling. Food is packed in airtight cans so that germs do not grow on them. Airtight means in air itself there are so many microorganisms present in the air. So that only we are pack the food things in the cans and bottles. So that only we are call it as the airtight container. When we are putting the food in the airtight container, it will not get spoiled. For example, we are using tins also for this purpose. Milk powder. Example for canning and bottling is milk powder. The next method is addition of chemical preservatives. That means we are adding the chemical preservatives, chemical substances to the food materials. The chemical preservatives are added to stop the growth of microorganisms. That means it will stop the growth of the microorganisms like bacteria, yeast and fungi. So it will stop the growth in the food materials. For example, sodium benzoate is added with fruits and vinegar is added with pickles. These are the examples which is given for the chemical preservatives. Sodium benzoate is a chemical substance which is added to the fruits, and the vinegar is added with the pickles. Instead of salt, they are adding vinegar. When we are adding the vinegar to the pickles, the food will not get spoiled. Children, these are the method which is involved in the preservation of food. Thank you, children.